Molly, Molly, oh, Molly, please come. Please, can you push this table back a little bit? It's a bit heavy. Then just let me drag this thing back to this side a bit. Okay, hey, raise it up a little bit. Okay, let's, let's see.
Fine this way.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's not on.
No worry, that was not meant to run. I'm saying it here. Can you push it towards that side a little bit? Oh shit, people are already on this live stream. Alright. Okay, let me see. It should be okay. Alright, we're going to be starting in a few seconds. We'll be starting in a few seconds. We are going to be starting in a few seconds. We'll start in a few seconds. I'm going to share my screen right now and then we'll get started. So I'll start by giving my prediction. After giving, can everybody hear me clearly? If you can hear me clearly, drop a one in the chat box. If you can hear me clearly, drop a one in the chat box, please. Okay, very audible, right? Um, on the group chat, on the this thing, my chat look. I'm sure everything is actually live. All right. Um.
Right.
So do we all have our live accounts ready to trade? Do we all have our live accounts ready to trade? I am going to be going for a buy on USD JPY, which is a long position. My risk reward ratio, as usual, is 1:4. So using a 10 pip stop loss, a 40 pips TP. Right? If we get our prediction right, the market moves very well. We should catch our 40 pips clean. The first news, we caught 30 pips. Second news, we caught 20 pips. And we are looking to catch 40 pips. Okay, if the market moves very well, we'll catch our 40 pips. If it does not move very well, we're going to close the trade, close midway to protect the profits which you already have. Okay, so let's start with the explanation. So if you know you have your MT5, HFM is the broker we are using. If you know you have your MT5, just log into your MT5. Log into your MT5 so you will be prepared. Our prediction for this particular news is a buy on USD JPY. Okay, it's a buy on USD JPY. We'll be entering our buy order by 2 enter trade by 2:29 p.m. We enter our trade by 2:29 p.m. so we can have the best entry. I'll drop the SL and I'll drop the TP, which we are going to let's enter by 2:20, 2:28. I'll drop the SL and TP, which we are going to use. So the SL and TP which we are going to use are definitely going to be from the HFM broker. So I'll calculate 10 pips stop loss from the broker, and I'll let you know what that is going to be. So the pair we are trading is USD JPY. We're entering a buy on USD JPY. So let's start from explaining what CPI is. What is CPI? All right, CPI is an abbreviation for Consumer Price Index. Price Index. So it basically shows the rise of prices of of goods consumed by consumers over time. So the way this fundamental news actually work is the way this fundamental news actually work is, for example, now this particular month we had they have an index for all these things. Okay, they have an index. Is the index used to measure the what do you call it, consumer price, this thing, the rate at which the goods are expensive or the goods are cheap. So every single thing being consumed by a household is called consumers goods. Okay, so the index is basically how expensive or how cheap these goods actually are. In Nigeria, there was a time when to buy a carton of Indomie, you spend just I think about 4,000 naira. Then at some point it rose to like 12,000 naira. Then it came down to 9,000 naira and stuff like that. So that is basically what CPI does. It shows the price index of these goods, not only goods, on the prices of housing, price of electricity, and other things that consumer people use. So the government use this as a measure to determine the rate of inflation. You understand? So if this index is going high, that basically means the prices of things in the country are very expensive. And the prices of things in the country are very expensive. That means inflation rate is high, and that means people are not going to be having a good standard of living. So the government will have to do something about the inflation to bring it down. You understand? So that way now they can keep inflation managed in an economy. Nigeria, I don't think we do anything like that. That's why fuel can rise from what they call it, 200 to like 1,000, and the government will be so relaxed for months. You know, that's why Indomie can rise from 4,000 to like crate of egg can rise from 1,000 each to like 7,000. It's not happening in the United States. Even if goods want to increase, they'll probably increase by 10% over a month, 15%. And this show on the CPI. And once it shows on the CPI, the government is going to make sure they do all they can to bring down that rate of inflation down. You understand? So as a result of that, though inflation is rising in the United States, but it's at a very, very small rate every single um yeah. So there are different CPI news. First of all, to check your CPI, you have to go over to um you go over to your Forex Factory. So Forex Factory, you see your news. So if you look here on Forex Factory, you see that there are three different CPI readings we are looking at. There's cost CPI. M over M means month over month. Then there's CPI, that's normal CPI, month over month, and there is CPI year over year. So I'll talk about the cost CPI. I'll talk about the cost CPI, so you can know the difference between the core CPI and CPI. So first of all, this M over M you're seeing is monthly CPI reading over a certain month. Then we have CPI year over year. Then we have CPI M over M. Okay. So what is core CPI? I'm posting on the Telegram group chat so people can know we are live. So core CPI actually is the price of goods excluding food and energy prices. So they add every other thing apart from food and energy. The reason why I don't actually add food and energy to core CPI is because food and energy usually spikes. Before you know, price of gas can just rise, spike, and this thing can actually affect your reading of the economy. Okay, this is core CPI is prices of consumer produced goods and all excluding food and energy. While CPI on its own, normal CPI includes every single thing. So the normal CPI reading can be jumping up and down anyhow because of there's food and energy and this thing fluctuates greatly. But the core CPI is usually very stable and it's a much more better index to use to measure the inflation rate of the country. While CPI year over year is also including food and energy, but now it's over 12 months. Okay. So this is including food and energy, including food and energy, including food and energy. This is monthly, and this is yearly. Then this here is monthly also. You understand? So when you see CPI, there's one for monthly, excluding food and energy, which spikes rapidly. There's one for yearly, and there's one for including. You understand? So the most important CPI news is this one, this monthly CPI, excluding food and energy. That's the most important one because that one shows the rate of inflation. You see the prices of house and other stuff like that. See how it's jumping or how it's falling, and it helps the government better. You know, I talked about FOMC in the last one. I'm going to talk about that one when we get to FOMC trading. And that's like I think next week or towards the end of the month. You're going to understand how the government reduces inflation, what they use to, how they reduce or increase inflation with interest rates, economic projections, and other things they use to switch out of all these things. So this is the most important CPI reading. That's why if you come to your forex factory here, you see that at the top here, it's usually at the top, core CPI M over M monthly. So what actually happens? What do you mean by monthly? Monthly means they are comparing because now we're in January. All right, so January, in January, we don't have CPI reading for January yet. The month just started. So January is basically comparison of the CPI of December. So what was inflation? Inflation before December versus inflation in December. This fundamental news are usually compares the previous months to the months before the previous month. So let's say January news today now is the comparison of the data for December with that of November. You understand? So if inflation was like let's say 2% in November, what was the inflation in December? Do you understand what I mean? So that's why if you come here, you will see that there are different readings. Don't worry if you don't understand every single thing I'm talking about. It's okay. You're probably still new. These sessions are going to be going on every single time like this till the end of 2026. So you join gradually, things will make, and you can also watch the recording too. You know, gradually, before you know, you're going to understand everything about fundamental news trading. You understand? So if you look here now, you can see there is previous. So this previous now was the inflation rate in November. So inflation rate in November was 0.2%. The core CPI reading rather was 0.2%. All right, 0.2%. Now this forecast is what people forecast it to be in the month of December based on every single thing they see there. They forecasted that it's going to be at 0.3% in the month of December. But we don't know the actual reading yet. We are waiting for the actual reading to come out. Do you understand? But people focus are already forecasting that it's going to be higher, that inflation was higher in December. There are numerous reasons why they forecast it's going to be higher, and we'll talk about it when we are done trading. All right, that's their forecast. So the actual reading, gone, is not going to determine if the market will go up or go down. Remember what I talked about when I talked about the NFPO? Now, CPI now, if inflation is lower, if CPI reading rather is lower, it affects the market in a certain way. And if CPI reading is actually higher, it actually affects the market in a certain way. So if CPI, I'm expecting CPI to be higher. I'm expecting the actual reading to be higher. I have lots of reasons why I did that. I used like 1 hour to get this result. And if CPI comes out higher, which is what I predict right now, it's going to make USD JPY to buy. As you can see, it's already buying small like this. It's already buying small like this. So that is basically this is my prediction. I'm going to explain how I came up with the prediction when I'm done with the trading, but just hold this one now. I don't want to scatter anybody's head. You understand? I don't want to scatter anybody's head. Let's hold this one. So we are going to be entering our buy order in 1 minute. We're entering our buy order in 1 minute on USDJPY. So you enter your buy order now. Remember to apply proper risk management too. So this will be 9.3. This is going to be 159.300. 159.300. Then this will be 158.800. 158.800. That's your stop loss and your TP parameters. I've already entered my own trade. I've entered my own trade. So we are waiting for the news to come out. News will be coming out in about news will be coming out in about 55 seconds. We entered around here. Fucking hell. So we got our prediction wrong this time around. Let's see what happened. So we got our prediction wrong this time around, and it hit our stop loss. So that particular stop loss, so, okay. So what actually happened? Let's come to the CPI reading. All right, it hit stop loss actually. I lost the trade. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, so what actually happened? So this is what happened. If you look at the reading, I said I predicted, all right, for my prediction here, I predicted the mark CPI reading is going to be higher. Okay, so we have forecast, and we have actual. So I predicted the actual value is going to be higher. And look at it, the actual value that came out was not higher, it was lower. The actual value that came out was lower. So remember I said if the actual value is higher, what will happen? USD JPY is going to buy. I said if CPI reading is higher, USD JPY will buy. So invariably, if CPI is equal to lower, USD JPY would sell. So the previous value here was 0.2. The forecast is 0.3. What actually determines if it buys or sells is not the previous value, it is the forecast. The relationship between the actual value and the forecast is what determines if it's going to buy or sell. So you usually look at the forecast. So the forecast is 0.3%. All right. So I was expecting the actual value to be around 0.4% or thereabouts, anything higher than the forecast. I'm going to explain my reasons very soon. But the actual value, and if it was actually zero point 0.4 or higher, what would have happened? USG would have bought. Okay. But the actual value was not higher. Instead, it was 0.2%, which is lower. And that's why it's sold. So, first of all, when it comes to trading, you need to know that trading is not 100%. You can never be 100% in trading. The wins and losses are there. But if you know what you're doing, you'll be profitable. Okay. When I did prediction, I said it was like 70% probability or so. So basically, if you take 10 trades, out of the 10 trades, we can lose like three and win like seven. The last trade we called that we won that one. This one we called that we lost. So it's just how it is. All right. So what made me think that the CPI reading today is going to be higher, not lower? So I usually use FOMC. Okay, FOMC. The economic projections gives their intents or give what they expect or what they are looking at in the market away. So now, what is FOMC? FOMC, board of governor, people that are very very smart, turning the knobs, increasing interest rate and reducing interest rates based on how the economy is performing to keep inflation and economic growth at a stable level. So last month they gave the economic projection, and from the economic projection, they said inflation, they are cautious about inflation. They were cautious about inflation. So that basically means inflation is likely to be sticky any point from now because they are very, very cautious about it. They are not feeling like, oh, inflation is reducing or stuff. They actually say things like inflation is reducing, or they are comfortable with the interest rate, yeah, stuff like that. I'm going to, oh, yeah, they are very comfortable. But they're actually cautious about inflation. So that basically means there's a tendency that inflation is likely to rise very, very soon. Now, why is inflation likely to rise? The whole tariffs, all right, tariffs that the president of the United States was giving to other countries, it actually affected the United States economy because lots of companies had to close down. They were not able to meet up with things because prices of goods were higher and stuff like that, and all of those things. Now, after the whole tariff stuff, the US government shut down the federal government, yes, the federal government. So when they shut down, as a result of that, now the CPI reading for like 3 months or thereabout was skipped. And if those CPI readings actually came out, they should have actually like shown the effects of the tariffs which he gave. You know what tariffs basically mean? If we used to buy this phone $1,000 from China, the phone I'm probably using for my camera, all right, and our president come and say, okay, everything coming from China, I'm going to collect 50% charge on them. That basically means the phone coming for $1,000 from China can't be sold anymore for $1,000 in Nigeria. Because the people actually importing from China will have to pay the government 50%, $500 to clear their goods. So the goods now is going to be coming into them at 1,005. Them selling to us will be like probably like 1,600. So as a result of that, even the prices of things on Amazon were so high that Jeff Bezos came to see that it's not because of him, it's not the cost, it's not the reason why the goods are high. They're trying their best. That it's because of the tariffs of Donald Trump. And the moment they say the Donald Trump now, or the president of the United States rather, now attacked him, like kind of like it was just a, and then he kind of like retracted what he said, and then you understand. So during the US government shutdown, this data were not actually released because the government agencies required to release data were not operational, because government shutdown basically means the money which you get as a government worker you're not getting because the government's budget for that particular annual year was not released. So the government cannot pay you. So just go home and rest. So if you're resting, how do you go and collect all this data to drop your CPI? So for like 3 months or thereabout, the news were not actually CPI readings were not actually dropped. They're just getting postponed and postponed and postponed. Then the last one that was dropped was incomplete because it just came back and did not actually have all the data. You understand? So this particular January one, we're expecting it to actually depict the overall state of the economy, the rate of inflation, and I was actually expecting the effect of the tariffs which he dropped to show on this particular CPI reading. But for some reasons, I was wrong, and it came out lower than expected, and that's why I did this thing. So, and that's why I did this thing. So let's look at the three this thing that came out. So inflation, the annual inflation in United States is the same thing, 2.7%, 2.7%, 2.7%. It did not change. As inflation rate is still above the first target um, of 2%. CPI, which is the one excluding food and energy prices, remains unchanged at 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. Then core CPI is the same with the previous one. It was 0.2 before, it's 0.2, but it was lower than the forecasts. Okay, this is lower than the forecast. So these were two reasons why I expected that thing to be the way it is. And three, I also checked on multiple news outlets, CNN, BBC, and all of those things. A lot of them were saying, um, analysts were giving their speculations based on all of these things, and they were expecting food prices to have been higher in December, to have been higher in December. So I had like three reasons to predict this value is going to be higher rather. So with inflation being lower, this is going to actually influence the decision of the Feds in the next FOMC. So we already have our CPI data. We also have our employment data, which is NFP. CPI was lower, NFP was NFP was lower, NFP was lower, unemployment rates higher. So the FOMC should be a very easy prediction. So that is basically. So the next news we are going to be trading is PPI, Producers Price Index. CPI is for the producers. I'm sorry, it's for the consumers. Me and you. PPI is for the producers, those producing the goods, their own index. You understand? So just the way I came live by 2 p.m., I'm just going to come live to by 3 p.m. and we're going to do the predictions to get that. So far, this is actually our results. Um, we won NFP prediction. Come on, I'm trying to get. Then we lost CI prediction. Then the next one we're trading tomorrow will be PPI. We will probably win it. I'm very, very hopeful about that. All right. And that's going to be it. So let me just put one already. Yeah, so that's basically it for the session. If you got value from this session, like this live stream. If you know you got value from the session, you enjoyed, though we didn't get our prediction right, but you enjoyed and you learned a lot of things from like the live stream. And set your alarm for tomorrow's live trading session. See you guys tomorrow by 2 p.m. Have a lovely, amazing, and beautiful day. Bye.